Hey, what's up guys? Welcome back to an all new holiday themed tutorial. Today's video, I'm gonna show you how you can draw this cute cartoon polar bear from start to finish. It's all in real time too, no time lapse, no edits, no cuts. So if you wanna follow along and draw step by step with me, keep watching. All right guys, so let's go ahead and draw a polar bear. Starting out, I'm using a 4000 by 4000, 300 DPI canvas. For my brush, I'm gonna start out sketching. So I'm gonna use my HB pencil that's part of my pencil pack that's available now. And color palette, once again, I've got this pre-made, so you can download this for free from my website, bjdell.com, underneath the YouTube reference materials page, which I will link it down in the description below. It's just a little thumbnail JPEG on there. Just long press to save it to your camera roll. And then once you're back in Procreate, come up to your wrench icon, go to add, insert a photo, select that color palette. It'll bring it in as a separate layer in Procreate, and then just long press on each of the boxes of color to select each individual color. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm gonna use black for this. Don't have it in the color palette, but just go all the way to the bottom of any color and select black, and we'll start sketching. The previous two holiday themed videos, I kind of had full body characters. This one, I want the polar bear to seem kind of big and a little bit more menacing. So with this, I think it's just going to be kind of like a portrait almost, kind of using the edge of the canvas here as kind of the cutoff maybe of the chest. So if we start to sketch, I'm going to bring up almost like a cone here. That's going to be the shape of the polar bear. So just kind of a thicker area down here, and it's going to kind of taper up into that cone up at the top. That's going to be the shape of the polar bear. Now, like with the reindeer, he had a scarf, so let's give the polar bear a scarf too. So we'll bring a curve line here, and then another curve line here at the bottom that comes out a little bit further on the sides. Then we can kind of pull in the scarf around like this. Kind of taper it back in there. Then from where the scarf sits right here and meets the body, let's go ahead and have the arms come out from there. And I think we'll just have the arms kind of coming down to his side. Nothing crazy, just some lines there just to show the arms coming out. And then we'll bring in the kind of tails of the scarf coming back in on that side. Let's go ahead and work on the hat next. So once again, a curve line. It's a little bit more straight than this one down here. Crossed here, then pulling that up from the sides and back into another curve line there at the top. Just like that. And then the hat, we'll just draw kind of like a triangle here towards the top. Coming back to another triangle back here. It's going to kind of fold in on itself right there. Have the little ball there on the back. Just like that. Have the ears kind of poking out here at the top. So a couple of kind of semicircles there with the insides of the ears showing right there. And then let's do the face. So like I said, with this guy, I want him kind of bigger, a little bit more menacing. So he's not going to have that same happy-go-lucky, like fun, cartoony look. I think I want to have more like a ticked-off bah humbug look. So for this, let's go ahead. We can use this line here to our advantage. And we can kind of tuck the eyes in, up and underneath there. So that kind of gives that look that we're going for. You can pull some tapered lines down here, kind of like those bags under his eyes. Have his nose come across here. So kind of like a triangle here coming down. Of course, that's going to be filled in there. And then, let's see, kind of have that snout, mouth area kind of come out and around here. A little bit more angled. Same thing here with the belly. We'll have that kind of come out and be a different color here. And then for the expression, I don't know if I want it like that, or how about we kind of pull it up like this. So he's got that annoyed look on his face. Once again, that kind of bah humbug look. I think that looks pretty cute. That'll work for what we're going with. So there we go. We've got our sketch done. We're ready to start inking this guy. So to do that, let's come up here to our layers menu. Let's make a new layer. So this layer 2 is going to be our inks. Layer 1, we're going to come back down here, hit the N for the blend mode, and drop the opacity down, probably about 40, 45%, somewhere around in there. We just want it to be a little bit lighter so we can draw on top of it and not have it too dark. Now that that's set, I'm going to come back up here to my brush library, and I'm going to go over to my cartooning set. I'm going to use my standard inker streamline to start out inking. Coming back up to my color palette then, I'm going to switch over to this dark blue color on that top row, that first one right there. And that's what we're going to use to ink. So before we start inking, like I've talked about in the past, we wanted to decide where's the light source coming from. Anything closer to the light source, those lines are going to be thinner line weights. Anything further away is going to be where the shadows are. Those are going to be thicker, heavier lines. So if I remember correctly, I think for the other 2 tutorials that we did for the holiday, we had the light source coming in from this top right-hand corner. So we might as well just stick with that on this one as well. So it means thicker lines back here, thinner here towards the front. With that in mind, and on our layer 2, let's kind of zoom in here, and we'll start on the hat. So once again, thicker here, and you get thicker by pressing harder as you come up and around. Letting up pressure breaks that line down smaller, so you get a thinner line weight as you let up pressure. Bring this up into a taper here. Pull the ear around here. And having this line a little bit thicker here at the bottom, since it's down on the bottom where the shadows are going to be, that one's going to be a little bit thicker than that top line. I'm going to draw in the circle here. Once again, that line weight a little bit thinner there towards the top. It's a little bit thicker down there at the bottom. I'm going to come in with my eraser, and for my eraser, I'm just using my standard inker streamline. I like to match up my eraser and the brush that I'm using. And we'll do this hat as it comes around. So once again, thicker back here, thinner as it comes around towards the front there. Same thing here, a tapered line, back to another tapered line there where it overlaps. And then we'll kind of thin those out. So there we go. And of course here I need to kind of connect the ear down where I didn't quite make it all the way around with that hat line. And then we'll do the ear back here too, a little bit thicker lines back there. So there we go. That looks pretty good. Let's go ahead and work on the body now. So once again, getting in here with a little bit thicker of a line. Bringing that down, thinner here towards the front. You'll see I'm trying to match up how it comes into the hat. It's pretty much one kind of swooping line down there. We'll erase these overlaps here. Try not to hit that line that I just did. Now that we have that, we need to work on the scarf. But you saw this, how kind of gentle I had to be not to hit that line we just did. When we do the scarf, we're going to have to erase these lines for the body, which is going to be really hard to make sure that everything matches up. So to make that easier, what we're going to do is we're going to come in here to our layers menu. We're going to make a new layer. So we're going to have 2 different ink layers, and that's what we're going to do the scarf on. Because when we go back to erase these, they'll be on a separate layer. We can erase really easily. So let's go back up to our brush now, and we'll start to bring in these lines. I want this one to kind of taper in here. Pull this one around, thicker line back here. Thinner as it comes in towards the front. Have that one taper in as well, just like the back. And we'll pull this line around and taper it in towards the center. Coming back up to our layers menu now, in layer 2 where we did the body at. We're going to come back to our eraser, and you'll see it's super quick and super easy to erase all this. We don't have to worry about hitting those lines that we just drew. Makes it so much easier to do that type of erasing. Now that we've got that done, coming back up here to my brush, I can combine these layers just by pinching them together, and we'll continue on with our other lines back here. Once again, these are going to be thicker towards the back. Get those tails in there from the scarf. bring down that other arm line there. Get the line here in the center for that belly color. That there. Let's come in here a little bit closer and work on these eyes. So half circles there, which we can drag and drop the color in. Coming back up to my eraser, I'm just going to erase some highlights in here. So a couple little dots in there for that highlight reflection in the eyes. Back to my brush now. Bring up those tapers coming out and around the eyes. Get the nose in here next. You don't have to worry about line weights here because we're just filling this entire guy in. So no worries about line weights there. Just want to have like a nice curve to it that matches up from left to right. That filled in. Then using my eraser again, I'm just going to erase a kind of tapered part there for the kind of shine on the nose. Coming back to my brush now, kind of get the mouth in here, or the snout in here around, and then get the mouth. It's going to be kind of that shadow area on the bottom lip here. Fill that in with a shadow once we go into the shadows. Start to get those in there. So that looks good. We've got the basic lines done. From here we can kind of go in and add some extra details. So I'm going to come back up to my brush and I'm going to switch over just to the regular standard inker. And then like I did before on the scarf of the reindeer, I think I did this on the mittens of the elf too, just kind of putting these tapered lines around here, just kind of show that it kind of has that wool look to it. So maybe it's scratchy, maybe he doesn't like it, it's uncomfortable, that's why he's got the bah humbug look. Maybe Mrs. Bear makes him wear this and he doesn't really want to, something like that. So we'll just kind of throw these around in different directions and just kind of haphazard across the design. You'll see some of these I'm coming off the edge here, some of them I'm overlapping, so some of them look like they're coming from behind. Do that there and then do the same thing here at the top. Just trying to get these kind of sharp and tapered. Once again, kind of coming around in different directions. Just like that. Maybe add in some extra dots here to the snout. Just like that. And then if you wanted to add in extra lines up here, like tapered lines to the hat, you could do that. If you wanted to add in some back here to make it look like it's kind of overlapping on itself, kind of has those folds in it, you could do that as well. Totally up to you what you want to do to make the design yours. But I think that's good on the low battery. Got to finish this up. I think that's good on the actual inks layer. So let's add in the colors now. So to add in the colors, let's come up to our layers menu. Let's make a new layer. So we've got layer 3. I'm going to drag and drop this below layer 2. Then coming back up to layer 2, I want to set this as reference. This is going to allow us to drag and drop the colors in on layer 3 by using layer 2 as a guide. I'm also going to turn off my sketch layer. And then for my background, I'm going to go ahead and switch this to a different color. It doesn't really matter what color you want to choose. I'm just going to use kind of like a goldish brown. It's because we're going to drop in some white, and if the background's white, we're not going to be able to see what we've done. So with my color palette still selected, I'm going to choose white. Once again, I'm on this layer 3 with layer 2, the lines layer set to reference. And I'm just going to drag and drop in all my areas of white on here. Get inside the ears, side there, side the snout or the nose here where that reflection is, and then across those eyes where that reflection is. That's going to be our white. Next up we've got red, so the hat and the scarf. And then finally our last color on that row is just that gray. We'll drop that in there. So there we go. We've got our color flats done. It's time now to add the shadows and the highlights. So let's go back up to our layers menu. Let's make a new layer. And we're gonna set this as clipping mask. So this is gonna allow us to color on a separate layer, but it's only gonna color areas that have color on them on layer 3. So it's gonna help us stay in the lines. Coming back up to my color palette then, I'm gonna go to this second row. There's a blue color on there. And then for my brush, I'm gonna continue to use that standard inker. And I'm just gonna use a pretty big area here, fill it in. I've talked about this before. When I go to do my shadows, I like to have a bunch of the different colors in the design shadowed in and colored in. That way, when I go in to adjust the opacity here in a minute, I can tell what that shadow layer looks like on the different colors. Since I'm doing this all on one layer, I can't adjust how the opacity looks from color to color. So I've got to make sure it looks good across all of them. And by doing a heavily shadowed in area like this with a lot of different colors selected, it's going to allow me to see, how does this look? How does it look from the red to the white? What do I need to have the opacity slider set at so that everything looks good together? Of course, you could do that separately if you wanted to kind of fine tune them. You could make 3 different shadow layers. You could make a shadow layer just for the white. You can make a shadow layer for the red, and then you could also make a shadow layer for that gray color of the snout. But that's totally up to you. I'm just doing it all in one to save time. You'll see here, I missed a little part of that gray. So if I long press here to select the gray, come back down to my color flats, I can fill that in. Just gotta make sure I switch back to my shadow layer and then also switch my color back. All right, so there we go. We got a pretty good section filled in. Let's get inside that ear here. Maybe hit along the bottom of this. Nice curve there. And maybe along the bottom here as well of the hat. All right. Maybe get this shadowed in too, where this hat kind of folds back in, curves around the back of the head. All right, so there we go. Now we're ready to play around and see what we're left with. So coming back up to my layers menu, hitting N for my blend mode, and dropping down my shadows, or my opacity is going to drop down the intensity of those shadows. I think probably about 40%. Looks pretty good. So that's what we're going to have our shadows set at. Then I'm going to come back in with my streamline and just kind of fine tune some of these shadows. I just do that really big, thick portion to begin with, and don't really worry too much about getting it perfect, so I can come back in and kind of fine tune around some of these curves later. You'll see with this, I'm just following the curves that I've got laid out there initially with the inking layer. It just kind of follows all of that around. I think this one can curve in a little bit more like this. There's that, and I think this one needs a little bit more of a curve here. Just like that. Okay, and one thing I've talked about before, sometimes I like to go back in with my eraser and erase some of the shadows. So back here, you see with the scarf, it's super, super dark. You can't really tell that it's shadowed in because there's not 2 different values here. There's not a non-shadowed value and a shadowed value. So by removing some of these shadows, the viewer can tell that yes, there is in fact a shadow back there because there's those 2 different values set next to each other. So just by doing that, removing some of these really allows the viewer to kind of see without really thinking about it that, yep, there is a shadow there, I can see it. And it kind of goes a long way to build up your design and make it a little bit more readable. So we can just go in here and erase some of these around the edges. Same thing here with the arm, pull in there. And there we go. I think that looks pretty good. One last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to taper this one out just so it doesn't come down and break off immediately right here. So it's going to have a little bit more of a line and a taper to it. Switching back and forth between my eraser and my brush is going to allow me to kind of achieve the look that I'm going for. that's kind of what I'm looking at. Just having that taper come in towards the front there. Just like that. Okay, so we've got that done. This ear though, you see the inside, I want that to be shadowed in, but you can't really tell that there's a shadow there inside the ear because it's all one solid color. So to fix this, we're gonna long press on this shadowed color, and we're gonna come back up to our layer menu and go back down to our color flats. So this color we selected is the white shadowed in, but once we actually start coloring in on the color flats, it's gonna change that, and you're gonna have a darker shadow color. So that's a little tip. If you wanna add a shadow, when there's a shadow already there, just select that color and go back into your color flats and color in. So you can see I can build up this other shadow here underneath that scarf again. Erase that part where I messed up there. And there we go. We could even do the same thing here on this section here, since this is darker here in the back. Fill that in, and that's going to be darker still. Coming back up here, I can bring this around towards the top and come back in. So see here, we're basically doing two different shadow layers, but it's not two different layers because we're just on the color flats adding in different base colors. That's just all that we're doing. I'm gonna fix this one little part underneath the eye, and we'll be done with the shadows. Maybe have like a little taper line there coming across the nose. That looks pretty cool. All right, so there we go. Let's go ahead and do the highlights next. So once again, coming to the layers, making a new layer and setting this as clipping mask. Then going back in to my color palette, going to white. I'm gonna come in here and just add some white across the tops where that light source is coming in from. So we'll have some there, have some around the front of the scarf here. Down towards the front there with a nice line. And then maybe even pulling this one around and tapering it as that curve comes around there. Once again, just using those lines that I've already done as kind of guidelines for where everything goes. There's that. Maybe pull in one down here around the front of the snout. And I do see here with my shadow layer, I'm going to come back in and erase the pupils so that those are really bright there. I'll leave those like that. Okay, so I think that looks good. Coming back to my highlights layer now, I'm gonna hit the blend mode, the N, and drop this down. Probably about 50%, looks pretty good. I'll leave that there, and there we go. So we've got the color flats, we've got the inks, we've got the highlights and shadows. Let's add a background in here real quick. So to do this, I'm gonna come back up to my layers menu. Background color, let's switch it back to white. And then I'm gonna make a new layer. I'm going to hold down and drag this all the way to the bottom. This is going to be our background layer. Coming back up to my color palette, I've got green in here to kind of keep up with that holiday theme. And we'll just drag and drop that into the background. So we've got a big solid square of green. I don't want it to be the entire canvas though, so I'm going to go up here, grab this. But you'll see as I start to move this around, it's got that line around there. Why has it got that line? Well, because we still have this set as reference. So we need to turn off reference. I'm going to go back down to this layer now, and I'm going to clear it, and then drag and drop it again now. So now that the reference is turned off, we can move this as one giant square. And we'll just bring this in, kind of behind him, just as kind of a frame there. I think that looks pretty good. Now I'm going to come up to my eraser, and my brush library, I've got the BJ Dell Christmas pack. Once again, if you guys didn't watch the two previous videos, this is a holiday theme pack of 5 different trees, 5 different snowflakes. You can use them as brushes. You can use them as erasers, whatever you want to use them as. And they are also free. So it's my holiday gift to you guys. You can download them over on Gumroad right now, which I'll link it in the description below. But let's go ahead and just use some snowflakes here and do some erasing of the background. So I'm just going to change the size of these as I go. If you want to change and do different snowflakes and change the actual brush, I'm just going to keep doing the same one just to kind of save some time. And I'm just changing the size as I go. So I've got big ones, I've got small ones, I've got some here, some there. They're just kind of all over the place. Once again, no rhyme or reason, just wherever you think they look good at. So there we go. Do a couple more, maybe up here. And that's it. So to finish this off, I'm going to come back up to my layers, make a new layer, switch back to that ink color that I initially used. And with my standard inker, I'm just going to sign this if I've got any room. I really don't have a lot of room left on this one, so let's just kind of sign him off to the side, I guess. Usually I leave more room there at the bottom, but he kind of took up the whole bottom there. So there we go, a holiday-themed polar bear just for you guys in time for Christmas and the holidays. This is the third different holiday theme one that I've done, and I'm gonna do more for the month of December, so stay tuned. If you like today's video, if you got some value out of it, do me a favor, give it a thumbs up. Make sure that you subscribe to the channel and turn on that bell for notifications so that you can get alerted when I post these new videos. If you guys do take part in these tutorials and do designs based on them and you post them online, I wanna see them. So if you're on Instagram or Twitter, tag me at BJDell, or you can also post them over on Facebook in the group called Keep Creating, a group for artists by artists that I made specifically for you guys over there. Place where you can post your artwork from these tutorials or anything else that you're currently working on. Want to see it? Place where you can give feedback, get feedback, meet new friends. It's an awesome place to be. I want you guys to join, so that's linked in the description below as well. As for me, I can be found online at bjdell.com, as well as on Instagram and Twitter at bjdell. So until next time, keep creating.